So we've factorized quadratic equations. The next step is to solve them. But before we use factorizing to solve our quadratic equations, I want to have a look at what it means to be a solution. So let's start off with x squared plus x minus 6 is equal to 0. This is a quadratic equation. It's got an equal sign in it. And a method to find a solution to this would be trial and error. So let's start off with x is equal to 1 and see what we end up with. So 1 squared is 1, plus 1 minus 6 is equal to minus 4. And so x equal to 1 is not a solution to this quadratic equation because it gives us on the left-hand side the answer of minus 4 when we know it needs to be equal to 0 to be true. So let's try x is equal to 2. So we've got 2 squared is 4, plus 2 minus 6 is equal to 0. And so we've found here a solution to this quadratic equation because when x equals 2, putting it into the left-hand side gives us the same value as the right-hand side. And normally we rearrange our quadratic equations to have 0 on the right. So if you put a solution into the left-hand side, it should come out with 0. And that means you've found yourself a solution to the quadratic equation. We could also solve this by factorizing it first. So on the right here, let's try doing that. So we've got our brackets equal to 0. I encourage you to have a go at doing this yourself. So let's do it together here. We'll have x and x at the start of the brackets because we need an x squared there. And then we need two numbers with a difference of 1 in the back half of our bracket. So we'll have 3 and 2. And this is a positive 1x, so we'll need positive 3 and negative 2. Okay, so how do we go from this to a solution that looks like this? Well, what we have on the right here are two terms that multiply together to give us 0. Now, I encourage you to have a go at this as well. Try finding two numbers that multiply together to equal 0. And so if you've had a go at that, you will know that either this first term has to be 0, or this second term has to be 0. Obviously, they could both be 0, but even if one of those terms is a number, bigger than 0 or less than 0, it doesn't matter what it is, anything multiplied by 0 is going to equal 0. So these two terms here, these two brackets, we say that either the first bracket, so either x plus 3 is equal to 0, or x minus 2 is equal to 0. So if this first bracket is equal to 0, then this expression is true. If the second bracket is equal to 0, this equation is also true. And we can work out a solution for x if we set those brackets equal to 0. So if I take away 3 from both sides of this equation, I find that x is equal to minus 3. And if I plus 2 on both sides of this equation here, I get x is equal to 2. So by factorizing, I have found two solutions to my quadratic equation. Obviously, this is a much quicker way than trial and error. And so let's have a go at another one as an example. So I've got x squared plus 3x minus 4 is equal to 0. So I encourage you to factorize that yourself and give it a go. Try and find the two solutions. So I'll work through this problem for you. We'll have our two brackets equal to 0. And this first x squared term is going to be made up of x times x. And our final number Well, this minus 4 has either got to be minus 1 times 4 or minus 4 times 1. So let's see which one it's going to be. If we take the sum of the two terms, it has to be the number in front of our middle x. So the sum of minus 1 and positive 4 gives us plus 3, so it's going to be those two numbers. And then we're going to set each of these brackets equal to 0. So if we set the first bracket equal to 0, we get x is equal to 1. And our second bracket, set that equal to 0, we get x is equal to minus 4. So this is a method of finding the solutions. Now remember, this is solutions because quadratic equations have two solutions. So this is a method of finding the solutions of a quadratic equation via factorizing. So if I was to list out this method in steps for you, it would look something like this. So if I come across something in the form of x squared plus bx, so this b here is just a number, plus c is equal to 0. So 1, I'm going to factorize. And then I'm going to set my first bracket equal to 0. Then I'm going to set my second bracket equal to 0. And finally, we can check that the solutions that we have found are correct. So if you remember before, when we used the method of trial and error, by putting in the solution into my quadratic equation, I found that the left-hand side should equal 0. So we can try it with our second one down here. If my answer is 1, by placing 1 back into here, I get 1 plus 3 minus 4, and that equals 0. So I do know that this x equals 1 is a solution to this quadratic equation. And if I tried minus 4, you can have a go at doing that yourself, you'll find that it also equals 0. So the final step is to check by substituting back in. So there you go. Those are the 4 steps that you need to take in order to find the solutions to a quadratic equation by factorizing.